let's talk more about England and a little bit about Spain and the rest of everything that's been going on from Andy Mitten's point of view. Andy, good morning to you. How you doing?
Good morning. Fine, thanks.
So a couple of things struck me. Irish Twitter was full of like, oh, look at this, typical English overreaction. That performance is rubbish. I actually thought the performance was not bad. Opening game of a World Cup, a lot of teams have been pretty nervous. They created loads of chances. They didn't lose their shape. They kept going right to the end. And eventually, they won a game they deserved to win because the classiest player on the field did what classy players do. And I think England can be pretty happy after last night.
I agree with you. And for England to win a game is a rarity. England have won one of their last 7 matches in international tournaments. I was in Brazil for the World Cup. They were dreadful. I'm still angry about how bad England-Costa Rica was in Belo Horizonte 4 years ago. It would get even worse in France. I was there 2 years ago. I think my highlight was meeting fans from Wales, Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland. England was the low point. I'd see all these really interesting games. I mean, great fans from everywhere. And then watch England 0, Slovakia 0 in St Etienne, or England against Iceland. It was so indescribably bad. So when I watched the first 25 minutes yesterday, and I've not gone to Russia for several reasons, and I was really impressed. I thought England started really well. They had like 3 chances in the first 6 minutes. The goal definitely rocked England, but England got a win. As you say, Kane did what goal scorers should do. He took his chances. He didn't feature prominently during the match. And it is only Tunisia, but Tunisia are ranked 21 in the world. And I know the FIFA rankings are not highly accurate, but this is not a team who fluked it and come in from being ranked 130. And they were very hard to break down. I think at one point in the second half, Tunisia's formation was 8-1-1. But England were patient. They got the winner right at the end, and now they're in a really strong position, beat Panama, and they're through to the last 16. And I think you've got to take baby steps with England because far too often, expectations have been way too high, blown way out of proportion. I think it's actually serving them well. The expectations are now much lower, that hardly any travelling fans have gone to Russia. There were 40,000 English in South Africa. For all the failings of the team, the numbers of travelling supporters were fantastic. And I know there's an element of idiots as well. And I was in Marseille a couple of years ago. But I spoke to a lot of England fans, and I've not really watched a lot of England games in person because I've always tended to focus on club football. And I felt sorry for them. I thought, you're paying all this good money. You watch Torquay United, you watch Hull City. Most of the big cities, you don't see flags from Manchester or Liverpool at England matches. It's villages and towns. And I remember speaking to one Torquay United fan thinking, where do you get your happiness from in football? Because it's not from your club, and it's certainly not from your country. So there was a shard of light in Volgograd last night.
Yeah, like you mentioned the lack of expectation, and I think that's been fairly well played up, and the happiness in the camp, just the squad chemistry has been played up to no end at this point. But really, at the end of a result, it's that result and the momentum you can get from that gets augmented a little bit by the positive nature of the camp. And this is when we start to see why this matters, because if a defeat had happened, things would have been okay, you'd imagine, or if a draw had happened, they would have been able to steer the ship to a level where things aren't going into full disaster mode given the happiness in the camp. But now that it's a win, everything just looks so much rosier as a result of the way Gareth Southgate has nurtured this good mentality in the squad.
Yeah, and people talk of the mentality and the atmosphere in the squad. There certainly seems to be a lot less of the inter-club rivalries, which scarred England in the 90s. You had very, very good players. Your Scholes and your Beckhams and your Nevilles from Manchester United, with your Carragers and your Gerrards from Liverpool, but they didn't get on. They didn't like each other. They do now, but it's no good now. When they were playing together, you had these really strong rivalries. And I spoke to lots of players who played for England in the 90s. They didn't enjoy it. They said it was full of cliques, players gambling at the back. And this squad is much younger. There seems to be more of an innocence about it. They seem to be handled better in terms of the media. There was quite an impressive media open day last week where every player was available to speak, and they were treated a bit more like adults. And I think the media has got to be a bit more responsible as well, because they've blown smoke up the backsides of England far too much in advance of previous tournaments and got hopelessly carried away. a win against Tunisia doesn't make England world champions elect. And I think if there's a weakness of the English mentality, it's that they'll be rushing out to buy flags this morning. But imagine if England were to beat Belgium. That's when people will get really carried away. But I take the general thrust of what you're saying. It is positive. There were some very positive performances from the lesser names last night. I thought Harry Maguire did well. I thought Kieran Trippier did well. England lack a creative midfielder of the type of Paul Gascoigne or maybe of Steven Gerrard. But nobody expected England to really go beyond the quarterfinals here. If you compare them to Belgium, that would be a real true test for England, because Belgium are a far better squad than England. But I would have cautious optimism as far as England go at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, when you say cautious optimism, I think reaching the quarterfinals would be great and acceptable. And if they were to go out and play relatively well in the process of going out, I would say that's a major step up from what happened 2 years ago. And for a young team, that's about right.
I think it would be a major step up. But people forget how bad it was, how bad England were in France and in Brazil. Consistently dreadful. I'm probably allowed to say it now, but I waited in the mix zone in Sao Paulo 4 years ago, not with all the English journalists, because I was doing a lot of work with Diego Forlan, and he came through. And he looked round, made sure that no one was looking, and said, "Why is your country so bad at football? Don't write that, Andy. Don't write it." And his point was, we're from a country of 3.5, 4 million people in Uruguay, and we've beaten you, but we just didn't feel challenged at all. We felt that if you scored, we could have scored 3 or 4 more goals. I'm not saying Diego could have, because he didn't have his best game, but Luis Suarez, Edison Cavani, and I couldn't defend that. I couldn't say we were unlucky, because England were not unlucky, because they were really bad. I think they had one good half against Italy in Brazil, but in the first half against Tunisia, especially that first 25 minutes, watching England play fluid attacking football, it's something I've not seen for a long, long time, and I think every English fan should be encouraged by that. I'm not sure the people listening to this in Ireland will be quite so encouraged. And I saw a tweet from a friend of mine who lives in Manchester now, but he's from Ireland, and he said, "I love living in England, but a little bit of the Irish comes out for me. I ran over an England flag which had fallen off a car yesterday." And I thought that was quite amusing. But there's definitely a positive feeling about England at the moment. It's only 2 defeats away from vanishing completely, but I can't see England not beating Panama. And if England were to play well against Belgium and get a bit of luck, and you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if they were to get 6 points and qualify from the group, happy days. But if they were to get 7 or anything better, then suddenly that bandwagon starts to roll into overdrive. And I don't know, I just thought there was enough about the quality of play in patches last night to start for England fans to start feeling a little bit confident heading into it. So who knows what's going to happen next. Are you watching the games on BBC coverage, or are you watching the games on Spanish coverage as a matter of interest? I wanted to see what you thought of the.
I'm watching both. I mean, I know lots of the former Man United lads out there, so I'm being a school teacher, and Ryan Giggs is doing stuff for ITV, Gary Neville is, Patrice Evra is as well. Roy Keane, who doesn't need any help on what to say, he's doing stuff. I wouldn't mind a Roy Keane being English of Roy Keane age 25 to 30. That would be good. I'm watching a lot of the Spanish coverage as well, and I find that I'm not an avid follower of international football. Club football takes up so much of my focus, so I tend to watch for personal relationships. That's why when I mentioned Forlan, I watched Uruguay closely a couple of years ago, and I was invited into the Uruguay camp. That's after security had realised that I wasn't a spy from England, and that I wasn't lying when I said that I knew some of the players. And Carlos Queiroz is somebody who I know. I know him from Manchester. I spoke to him last week in Moscow, and I want him to do well because I know him and I like him, and I find that personal relationships are affecting the way that I feel. So I'll be watching Iran and thinking, go on. Iran have not lost a game in competition for 4 years. I mean, they don't often look like scoring, but Queiroz is a really, really good coach. And then the Spanish coverage, I watched that of England last night, and then I did 90 minutes of analysis on Spanish television about England, which wasn't easy for someone to do in Spanish about a national team where there's not that much to to say after one game, but the feeling in Spain about England was very positive, because so often England have failed to live up to their hype and expectation. Everyone respects England for being a great football country, which it is, and for the power and the strength of the Premier League. But I've seen some pretty positive words from respected Spanish pundits about the England national side. But again, don't get carried away. England have beaten Tunisia. Let's see how they go on before they go on.
There was a little bit of getting carried away on the BBC last night. Gary Lineker might have accidentally used the word exceptional about the quality of the performance against Tunisia, which he's getting slaughtered for, as you might predict. He's predictably getting slaughtered for using the word exceptional, because it wasn't an exceptional performance. But I still understand that why people get carried away with a last-minute winner in a World Cup match, particularly when it had all the hallmarks of being one of those games where you get sucked into a situation, didn't quite fight your way out of it, limp into a 1-1, and suddenly all of the divisions which the tabloid media have been fomenting for the last 6 months are straight back to the surface, and that disappears. So you can see why there's an outpouring of joy. Those tournaments hinge on goals, they hinge on momentum. These kind of things really matter.
Football is really, really important in England. I did a derbies book and travelled to 26 countries around the world, and I don't think I found anywhere in the world where football matters as much as the north of England and maybe Glasgow, but cities like Newcastle and Liverpool and Manchester. And I'm in Spain and covering Barcelona and Real Madrid, and football just isn't quite as important there. Now, your typical Catalan might say, yeah, but you've got nothing else better to do in Manchester because it rains all the time. We can go to the beach, we're more cultured than you, we're actually superior than you. Whatever. My mum, who doesn't go to games, knows what's going on at Manchester United. It is a real talking point, and England expects. It is a huge, huge football country. And when I saw how many England fans were in South Africa, and even Brazil, massive, massive numbers. Now, I know there's a big population. I know we're taking fans from close to 50 million people, which is 10 times as many as the Republic of Ireland, for example. But football really matters. So when the national team do well, because they've never done well, short of a couple of games, maybe Euro 96. People talk about Euro 96 as it being this great coming of age of life. And that summer, because it was sunny and everything was wonderful. England's national team have consistently underachieved, given the strength of the sport in the country, given the strength of the players coming through. Maybe the Premier League doesn't help the national team because players go out and clubs go out and buy from around the world now, and that limits the chances of a lot of English players. But people really live in hope, and if England were to win the World Cup, and I don't think they will do, wow, it would be just absolutely massive.
Yeah, fair enough. What about Spain in the aftermath of the 3-3 draw? I presume there's a great level of excitement about the quality of their performance. It took a remarkable individual moment of genius from Ronaldo to prevent them from winning a game in the aftermath of one of the biggest crises that we've ever seen on the edge of a World Cup. So they must be very happy with how things have started.
Yeah, I watched the game in Barcelona on Friday night, surrounded by Barca supporting Catalans, and Cristiano Ronaldo is probably not their favourite person in the world. So it was quite amusing for me to see Ronaldo scoring those goals. And then the aftermath of the game, well, I thought it was a superb game. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. And the criticism of David De Gea, which I think is really unfair, because he's exceptional for Manchester United, but he isn't for Spain. And I think there are other reasons at play with the criticism of De Gea. The fact he's not called Iker Casillas is a big problem for David De Gea. The fact that he hasn't got the Madrid media in his back pocket, that he's not as charismatic as Casillas was, nor successful. De Gea says almost nothing of note. He's not an interesting man. He's just a brilliant goalkeeper. When you compare him to, even at Manchester United, Juan Mata and Ander Herrera, they're really bright, engaging, interesting lads. And De Gea's got none of that. So when he makes mistakes, people are really waiting for him. There are a lot of people in Spain who cannot understand why he's not playing in Spain. They don't think that Manchester United are anything like as big as Real Madrid or Barcelona. They're certainly not as good as those two teams at the moment. But Manchester United can punch their way globally with those two teams. So the talking points with Spain are, will De Gea keep his starting place? I think he will. But if he was to make another mistake, because he's made a couple in friendlies as well, and he's very defensive, and he can't hide away in Spain and not talk to the media like he can in Manchester, where he gets away with saying nothing. And he comes out and he's very defensive and said, I didn't kill anyone on Friday night. And of course he didn't, but football attracts the irrational, it attracts the passionate, and you see opinions, especially on social media, in the immediate aftermath of events, and some of them are unedifying to say the least. But I think Spain were also praised for the way that they didn't win. They were in a position of control, but Portugal are the European champions. Spain had lost the manager 2 days before. You can take positives, but Spain conceded 3 goals. When they won the World Cup in 2010, they only conceded 2 goals in the whole tournament. So that draw, it dampened expectations a little bit. But Spain aren't coming into this tournament as world champions like they did last time. They're coming into it with a very, very good team, a new manager, and people hoping that it's not the disaster that Brazil was 4 years ago.
Well, what was your sense of the mood around Catalonia last week when the Julen Lopetegui news broke, the chaos that ensued? Was it sort of a slapstick view of events in the Spanish Football Federation?
Depends which Catalans you asked. I spoke to one person who is firmly of the view that Catalonia should be independent from Spain, and he found it hilarious and wants Spain to lose matches. Now that surprises me, but there are people like that who exist. People who live in Spain, pay their taxes to the Spanish government, who want Spain to lose. I was in Spain when the country won the European Championships in 08, in 12, and won the World Cup in 2010. There were big parties here. There's only been one Barcelona player, one Catalan, Oleguer, who's said, I don't really want to play for my national team. It is still a great honour for people like Gerard Piqué, for Xavi Hernandez to play for Spain. And they get on well. Sergio Ramos and Gerard Piqué, big rivals, but they actually get on well. And Spain have been very successful since they put aside their inter-club and inter-regional rivalries. Given what's happened politically in Catalonia in the last year, there'll definitely be more people hoping that Spain lose. But I would still say the majority of people, I'd still say 70-80% of people who live in Catalonia, and only just less than 50% want independence, I'd say that they'd be rooting for Spain. But the Spanish national team, they never play in Catalonia. I think they've not played here for 15 years. They go to the hotbeds of Spanish support, Madrid, Seville, and then the regional cities, Pamplona, La Coruña, Alicante, places like that. Barca is a much bigger deal than Spain is in Catalonia, just as Manchester United or Liverpool are a much bigger deal in Manchester or Liverpool than England are.
Andy, we've been seeing dispatches from Jose Mourinho working for Russia Today as a pundit, and it's just interesting to see him in that environment. He's not a great pundit so far. He's been very kind of, not the type of... He's been very measured and calm, and exactly what you don't want from a pundit. There's been no theatrics, there's been no anger. There's almost a sense that he might be looking at some of these players as potential recruits down the line.
I'm sure that if he's doing his job properly, he should be looking at every potential player as a potential recruit for Manchester United. It's a busman's holiday for him. He's being paid to be a commentator and being paid very well. And Russia Today is not without his critics, and I can understand that. And Mourinho was criticised strongly for taking the money from effectively the Russian state to do that work. But if you compare that to Ron Atkinson at Man United, 86, the club felt that he took his eye off the ball. He was nowhere to be seen during the World Cup. The season started, he wasn't prepared. If Mourinho wants to spend his time watching football in June rather than sitting on a beach, I have no problem with that at all. He spots a good player. He'll be topping up his knowledge of who could potentially do a job and doing it from a position of strength, because he's got the wherewithal financially to buy practically anyone, apart from your Messis and Ronaldo's, although Ronaldo flirts with Manchester United every 6 months when he wants a new contract. But Mourinho has also calmed down a bit. I interviewed him for United We Stand, and I was quite impressed by him. And he's got a lot of critics among our readers, chiefly because of how he is and the style of football. But on a human level, I was surprised. Now, I know he's turning on the charm. I know he knows that our readers are the hardcore fans, and he wants them on side. But he didn't need to give us an interview and be as open as he was. And I think he can be very charismatic in private. I think he just feels that people are taking aim at him every single day, which they are, because he manages Manchester United and because his name's Jose Mourinho.
Are there any players in particular you think that he will have an eye on, or that are playing in the World Cup, who are potential recruits for Manchester United and legitimate ones at the moment?
Yeah, there's a lad called Messi who plays up front for Argentina. He's quite a handful. I think it's in Mourinho's interests to keep his opinions to himself. There's absolutely no advantage for him to be saying, I really like this Serbian central midfielder at Lazio, and I'm going to go all out to get him, because Lazio will just get that information and be, okay, that's 90 million euros. He was watching Fred for a long time. United have signed Fred. We're not seeing him so far. He'll be watching his own players. So it was a good day for Manchester United players yesterday. I know Victor Lindelof didn't start for Sweden, but Romelu Lukaku did very well for Belgium. Yeah. I think that Ashley Young can be pleased at where he's got himself now for England. Jesse Lingard missed some sitters, didn't he, for England? But Marcus Rashford came on. So Mourinho's mixing it, and the World Cup's a great networking chance as well. All these big 5-star Russian hotels in Moscow, they're full of football people. They're all these side rooms. They're having a coffee. They're talking. They're getting up to date on everything. He's heard that he's not quite happy at so-and-so club, and he's coming to the end of his contract and fancies playing in England. So he's topping his knowledge up all the time. I'm quite happy for him to be there doing that. And even if he wants to sign a superstar, as a Manchester United fan, I'm once bitten, twice shy, because I've seen great players come to the club in recent years and flop badly. So if he wants to bring in players no one's ever heard of, who he spotted playing for Senegal, more power to his elbow.
Oh, good stuff, Andy. Enjoy the rest of it. Thanks a million, man.
Thanks. Nice speaking to you.
Andy Mitten there, and you should check out United We Stand. It's the best in the world at being a fanzine. Obviously, you can read his stuff on ESPN and follow him on Twitter as well.